So everyone who is afflicted with the disease of Alzheimer's will have a reaction to that disease. Now, everybody falls broadly into one or two camps. Someone who has Alzheimer's will either accept their disease or they will deny it. Now the interesting thing is that in the process of going through that disease, they can move from one camp to the other. Somebody might start out still mostly in control of their facilities, and they're told by their doctor, you have Alzheimer's. And they go, okay, I understand that I'm sick, I accept it. But as they start losing more and more of their mental abilities, they come to a point where they're very sick, and at that point they think, you know what, there's nothing wrong with me, I'm perfectly healthy. And so they move from accepting it to denying it. Well, other people, they start out and they have most of the mental ability, and they can't tolerate the idea that they're sick. So when the doctor tells them you have Alzheimer's, they go, no, I'm perfectly fine. They come with all sorts of convoluted explanations for why they're still fine. But as they lose those mental abilities, they come to a point where they accept that they're sick, and they say, okay, I can tell I'm not healthy. So you can switch, the person with Alzheimer's can switch between which camp they're in. But you need to recognize, you need to understand that if someone denies that they're sick, they're going to fight you a lot more over things than if they accept that they are not healthy. Grandpa Purdy accepted that he had a sickness called Alzheimer's. He didn't always understand it, but he accepted that he was sick, so that if there was something that was going wrong, he accepted the explanation. Grandpa, that's happening because you have Alzheimer's. If he was sitting there and he thought he saw a cow across the living room, and I told him it was a chair, he'd go, I don't know why I see things that aren't there. But my other grandfather also developed Alzheimer's, so I have it on both sides of the family. My other grandfather, Grandpa O'Keefe, he died actually this June. And he, to his dying day, did not admit that he had Alzheimer's. And so, to his dying day, he insisted he could still drive the car. And you can imagine the wars that developed over that. So if you have someone in your life who has Alzheimer's and they accept the disease, be very, very thankful. It still is not an easy journey, but it is a heck of a lot easier than somebody who thinks they're still perfectly healthy. Now, regardless of whether they accept it or deny it, they will experience a profound loss of control in their lives. There is no more profound loss of control we can experience than the loss of our own mind. And that draws up within them very strong emotions. Fear, anger, shame, pride. They don't all feel all four of those. They don't all feel them equally. But those kind of emotions become such strong feelings in their lives. Fear and shame are very common. But sometimes there is pride and anger that they're losing things they used to have. For Grandpa, he was afraid that he's going to be abandoned, afraid that how could he go on. For my other grandfather, he resorted an awful lot to pride. And so he'd tell over and over and over stories about the accomplishments in his life. Got to the point where he could tell them better than he could, because he'd just sit there and he'd tell them over, and it was like, ah! You'd be surprised at how it feels like torture eventually to hear the same stories over and over again. But that was his emotional response to the feeling that his life was draining between his fingers. He needed to keep repeating the things he'd done over and over and over again. Now, those strong feelings so often develop into a reaction of lashing out or withdrawing. Sometimes you see a person go through a cycle where they'll lash out and then they'll be withdrawn. They'll lash out and then be withdrawn. Other people are always lashing out or always withdrawn. For Grandpa Purdy, he was most of the time withdrawn. He gave up his social life. He went and he sat on the couch, and that is where he lived his life. Now, it's very sad, but admittedly, a withdrawn person is a little easier to take care of than one who's lashing out. You may not be so lucky. But regardless of whether the loved one in your life is someone who's lashing out or withdrawing a lot, you need to recognize that their reaction is not about you. It's not directed really at you. It's really the reaction to their disease. So we need, as caregivers, to take a deep breath and say, this isn't personal. It's not about him and me. It's about the disease. And then secondly, when we can say that, when we can recognize that, when we can see what's causing them to have those reactions, we can understand what we can do to help. Make them feel safe. Make them feel accepted. Make them feel respected. Let them know that no matter what happens, you still love them, you'll still take care of them, and you still remember all the accomplishments they made in life. Because if you can make them feel safe and secure in response to their fears, then those levels of agitation will go down. No, you can't make it all go away. I wish you could. But you can make it better for both of you if you can respond appropriately to what they're feeling so they let them feel safe and secure.